When you're EQing your track, one of the techniques that I use the most in my EQing is frequency slotting. So the way this works is that you're carving out frequencies to help instruments fit together. And I'm going to show this to you as an example here in the piano and the strings section. So I'm just going to solo the piano and the strings. So if I open the piano plugin, if I open the EQ on the piano, and I also am going to open the EQ on the strings. So if we reset this to default, as you can hear that the strings take the front seat here, and they have a lot of activity here in this 2K range. And then the piano is mostly sitting here in this lower register, and it has barely any high frequencies, any presence in the high range. If we go back to my EQ curve settings, you hear how much more presence the piano has when I boosted this presence frequency. This range 2K to 4K brings a lot of clarity to our sound, a lot of presence to our piano. And then I turned the 300 hertz down a little bit because I wanted to remove the mud. So if I solo just the piano by itself, you hear all this muffle is sort of turned down a little bit, and then I brought a lot of clarity back into the piano. And then if we listen to the strings by themselves, there's a lot of this 2K activity, which is competing with our piano quite a bit because the piano has barely any activity here. So that's why I decided to boost it here. And so let's compare it to an EQ'd version. So I've reduced this really super resonant frequency that the strings had. I turned it right down. Which gave space for some of these higher frequencies to come through a little bit more, and as well as these sort of mid-low frequencies as well. And now these instruments are sitting much nicer together. Now the strings have taken a little bit of a backseat, and the piano came through forward a little bit more as compared to the original. So when you're EQing your track and you're listening for different instruments and seeing where they sit in the frequency space, it's a good idea to sort of create room for each of them to have their own kind of a puzzle piece and their own frequency slot. And this technique, like I mentioned before, is called frequency slotting for the reason that you're creating this sort of spot for each instrument to sit in the frequency range.